B1 family, welcome to Black Logic. So this evening we'll be discussing Candace Owens, a so-called figure in the Black community. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that Candace Owens is a foundational Black American. Just covering that off the top. That doesn't mean anything. That is just to kind of give you a little bit of background information. Okay, I'm around 95% certain she isn't. Okay, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me. And I know videos like this, I tend not to do. I said this last time when I was covering, I forgot the gentleman's name, but I was covering him on Monday nonetheless. But I do want to point out, because I know a lot of people may be triggered, because I've been reading a lot of comments that everybody is respecting and admiring how intelligent Candace Owens is. But she has made statements that counter the Black Lives Matter movement, not the organization, but the movement. Often saying white lives matter, which is a counter to our issues that we have in our community that we're trying to put on a global stance in order to get some support, help, resources, legislation, etc. Right? So that goes against our fight for equality and justice in this country. But I don't know if you guys are familiar. There was a recent interview she did with Joe Budden, and he is yet to release the interview. Okay, you've been hearing sound clips and sound bites, maybe small snippets, but he is yet to release it. I've been looking for it. It's nowhere to be found, not even on Joe Budden TV. So there seems to be some sort of change of mind, some sort of transformation that Candace Owens is now pro-Black. She spoke about the greatness of Black Americans and seemed to show a newfound understanding of the issues facing the Black community. Right? All of a sudden, oh, you know what? My people are going through something. Maybe I never went through it, but maybe the white talking points, maybe me now getting fired from the Daily Wire, maybe there's some truth to what Black people were referring to. And I wonder how many of the white supremacists in her community are going to come out and now be against Candace Owens. I'm just curious, because we've seen a sudden change in her perspective. Now, Candace Owens' history speaks for itself, and it tells a very different story. It's important to remember her past actions and statements and not be swayed or impressed or overly eager to jump to her side. It's always good to see someone acknowledge the achievements of Black people, not taking nothing away from this, her intelligence that people think or she may or may not have. None of that. I'm not hating on that. This is about her track record, in that her Black card had been revoked and can never be given back. And I think this is the issue that a lot of people are going to have with certain videos like this, because it's not attacking the sister, it's describing who and what she is, and there lies the problem.
Always say, Tucker, is that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when the perpetrator is a Black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country, given the fact that Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate.
Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by race. We're going to look at a shortened version of the full video I cut down for you guys so you can get context. I understand this is a small sound bite, it's a small clip, never tells the entire story. So we're definitely going to cover a couple of videos here. Stay with me. We have a lot to cover. But if I'm going to do a video about somebody, I must do my research and tell exactly why. Because you're going to have fans, you're going to have subscribers and followers and admirers and people. I want my daughter to be like this. I read all these comments. It's like, wow. Does anyone not know Candace Owens for what the real grassroots know her to be? It's like no one knows what Candace Owens is I'm reading comments that people are essentially admiring Candace Owens for her intelligence. But I'm like, do you understand her history, her recent history, like within the past year history? No one is really breaking that down. I know she's going on Joe Budden's podcast. She's went on the Breakfast Club's broadcast, and she's speaking somewhat semi light filtered, light coated, sugar cream pie, pro-black. No, we're not letting people like this get away with the grift. You sell your own people out, you denigrate, you speak about these white supremacist talking points, you rationalize and radicalize people to harm black people. Not that you say go out and do these things to black people. The more people that think black people are worthless are more people who are going to be rationalized and then radicalized to go harm black folk.
Recently, she was on Tucker Carlson's show saying what she's paid to say, basically smear Black Americans. Let's watch.
One thing I always say, Tucker, is that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when the perpetrator is a black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country, given the fact that Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate.
Okay, so we'll talk about that very last statement regarding African Americans being the most murderous in the country. But I want to give you more context because I'm sure you noticed in that video, you see a photo of Darrell Brooks show up, and Darrell Brooks was the person who drove his SUV through the holiday parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, killing 6 individuals, by the way. Now, something curious is happening with that story because on one hand, like the guy is a criminal, and he's not just a criminal for what he did on that day. He's a criminal because he's got a long rap sheet of violent crime, okay? Now, the authorities in the area released statement after statement about how we don't know for sure what his motive is, but we know that this was not any type of terrorist attack. In fact, let me go to the second graphic here. Waukesha Police Chief Daniel Thompson said the attack, quote, was not a terrorist event. But the right wing wants to make this a anti-white terrorist attack by a black man, when in reality, he's just a terrible criminal who had no business being out on bail in the first place. So for instance, investigators have said Darrell Brooks was fleeing the scene of a domestic dispute when he turned into the parade, but police were not pursuing him. He was free on $1,000 bail in a Milwaukee County case earlier in November, in which he's accused of intentionally striking a woman with his car. He should not have been out on bail, okay? So that is the only statement that you're gonna see in this whole exchange that's accurate. But trying to tie Darrell Brooks to some like anti-white hate crime is just, there's no evidence of that. Anyway, go ahead.
No, look, I don't even want to engage in their ridiculous debates. Like they're trying to make this political, and you have to look at the case, right? So sometimes there are attacks by Muslim terrorists here in America, and they're political in nature because they will state it as such. Sometimes there's attack by right-wing terrorists, and they state in their attacks, this is because I love Donald Trump and I want to send a pipe bomb to his enemies, including people in the media and people in politics. They very clearly stated the guy who drove up with a truck full of bombs, he claimed, right?
There's just a lot to cover here today, family, and I really want to break this down because this is I know that you've been seeing a lot of videos about Candace Owens, and this is not about smearing her. This is about revealing the truth. This is about giving the people what they probably have not seen because of her recent interviews on popular platforms like The Breakfast Club, as well as Joe Budden's podcast, which she has yet to release the full video, okay? I just want to let you guys know that as well. Now, let me show you guys this very quickly here. Now, I'm not going to read all of this, but I want you guys, if you're fast readers, to understand about race in America. Race in America, hands down. She was one of the ones from the right, and a lot of people play the right and the left, but she states she's a conservative, and that's considered the right, that America is not a racist country, that implying that America was not built on racism. And we're going to get into her some of her comments about Black enslavers or Africans who sold Black people into slavery. And there's this clip where people really broke it down in a way that I probably could never break it down. So I think you guys are going to get a lot from that. And here's some of the legislation that I think that I think that people are going to see here that they may not understand. It states here that the Constitution itself, the governing document, seek to establish justice and secure the blessings of liberty, with compromising with white supremacist demands that the nation codified the inferior status of Black people, the fugitive slave clause, article, section, etc. Made it illegal for anyone to interfere with slave owners who were tracking dramatics fleeing slavery. Basically, do not interfere with them going to retrieve their property. And of course, there was Article 1 and clauses, etc., which contains the quintessential compromise on how to enumerate the country's Black population, how to decrease it, resulting in the decision to count individual human beings, the Black human beings, as being 3/5 of a whole person. Okay. It goes on to state that the white mindsets about citizenship and immigration policy that still roils American politics to this day is not even really the result of the compromise. In its essence, a complete computation of the concept that America is and should be primarily be a white country. The 1790 Naturalization Act, one of the country's very first laws, declared that to be a citizen, one had to be a free white person. That belief was sufficiently uncontroversial that no compromise was necessary, and the provision was quickly adopted. In this next one, they kind of list a court case of a group of people stating that, yeah, we should be citizens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let me move on. The Harvard Gazette, why America can't escape its racist roots. So if the government is stating, the U.S. government is stating that America was built off slavery, that America was built off racism, and then you have these Ivy League schools stating the same thing, and the reason guys can go read this for yourself, okay? And this is out of Newsweek. Generally, the conversation surrounding who built America are based on theorized summations of it. The Lincolns, the Washingtons, and the Roosevelts of the world, who names echo in textbooks and government buildings across the states. Their building and construction of America speaks to the mythology of law, order, democracy, and power that surrounds how the country was founded. The idea of American fortitude, the idea that rests on hard work and diligence, that these and these alone, not inherited wealth, stolen properties, or gender and class and racial biases, will get you ahead in life. I mean, pull yourself by your bootstraps, Black folk. Pull yourselves up. The reason why you guys aren't doing well in America, in a capitalist society that my forefathers built, Black folk, is because you're lazy. It's because you're not smart enough. That's what they tell us. Stop crying, stop whining. That's what they say, right? Will you get ahead in life? It's very much a groundwork for modern racism. Let me back up. Stolen properties of gender and class and racial biases will get you ahead in life. It's very much a groundwork for modern racism as we see it. An attempt to depart from race and racism as one of the governing principles in which America was constructed is very much racist itself. Okay? The actual building of America, its framework, the very foundation, and the manual and labor involved, its marble and brick, plaster, soil, and grain cannot be discussed without a discussion about the Black hands that had the ancestral imprints ingrained on their surfaces. The irony that New York City Dutch sellers brought with them enslaved peoples' bodies are not buried under the financial capital known as Wall Street, because who built Wall Street? Our ancestors did. And they were Wall Street. They built Wall Street, and they were the first stock traded on Wall Street was human property. It states that Americans' financial freedoms, its sensibilities, and growth are literally built on top of the bodies of blackness. The black labor force played a large part in the building of America. That labor force was enslaved, and they were enslaved due to a system that saw them as inferior, less than equal, and not worth even being deemed fully human. Skipping a sentence, racism not only built the conceptualized version of America we know, racism had a hand in its physical infrastructure. And all that is saying, you know who built America. And this is a triple down, family. Slavery launched modern capitalism, and turned the U.S. into the wealthiest country in the world. Can you guys see that? Let me blow that up for you guys. No nation paid reparations to slaveholders, not to slaves. The nation, listen, the nation paid reparations to slaveholders, not to the slaves. On April 16th, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln, the one that Obama adores, signed a bill ending slavery in the District of Columbia, providing he signed a bill ending slavery in D.C., and at the same time providing for compensation to former slave owners. No one talks about that, do they? Then out of that, vagrancy laws allow police to sweep up black men and then rent them out as convict labor. Now, if you guys are familiar with vagrancy laws, it's illegal to be unemployed. It's illegal to be homeless. It kind of falls within that realm, however they want to interpret it. Because if you notice, a lot of the laws in America are not black and white. They are to be interpreted by the Supreme Court if it goes that far. So again, there's a lot of loopholes, there are a lot of cracks and crevices and gray areas within the law for these things. So vagrancy laws coming out of slavery, they say, well, you know what? Don't hire him. We have a law. Don't hire black people. We have a law. It's illegal for them to be unemployed. It's illegal for them to be homeless. So once we lock them back up, we'll lend them out to you. Yeah, we'll do that. We will lend them out to you because following the war, convict leasing programs shifted the Southern prison population to predominantly black. What they're stating here is that this was all done by design. See, a lot of times, family, when you're an innocent man going to prison, they create a criminal. Prisons create criminals. No one wants to talk about this. It states here, at the outbreak of the Civil War, the market values of slaves in the U.S. exceeded that of banks, factories, railroads combined. Slaves were worth $3 billion. Just think, family, if every time you needed something to be done, complete or finish, you had someone to do it absolutely free. And the only thing you had to supply was the materials. You know, you have an uncle, you have a father, you have some friends of the family that are skilled in certain trades. The only thing they provide is probably a 6-pack of beer and the materials. Picture if all your work was done like that. Picture if you only paid for the land and the materials to build your house on. How significantly cheaper would that be instead of getting a loan? This is why this country is the most powerful country and one of the top richest countries in the world. It's because for hundreds of years they had free labor. But Candace Owens do not believe that America's still racist. Even though she's the same woman who was suing someone because of racism. And this is why that card cannot be regiven. That card cannot be extended anymore. Absolutely not. Social safety nets have missed Black Americans. Social Security Social Security originally excluded domestic and agricultural work. Mostly Black Americans, especially in the South, were doing that type of work. The result of Black Americans have not been able to get a foothold in the economy. For every dollar of assets white households have, Black households have a dime. They have a dime, and of course, this PDF is kind of a little bit behind, but the numbers are still significant as far as the range of them. By 1982, only 1.5% of farmers were Black. In the USDA Civil Rights Office, which investigated loan program discriminating complaints, was closed. So there was really no equality in this country. And it still isn't, because we still see banking discrimination. We still see mortgage discrimination. When home appraisers come to appraise Black homes, we still have current cases within the past 5 to 10 years. But you have people to believe that America isn't still racist, that Black people are just crying about oppression and it's oppression, and we're just whining, and that's because we don't want to work hard. We don't get out there and get it, and we're not applying ourselves, and we don't have the right sort of aptitude. And this is your girl. This is your girl. You guys are not familiar with her. That's okay. We'll get right to it, family. Listen in on this.
Mr. Chairman, it's my time.
Yeah,
it's my time.
You've got your time, Mr. Mendoza. You have 3 more seconds.
Every 4 years, you bring up race, and you knew exactly what I meant when I said hilarious, and you just tried to do live what the media does all the time to Republicans, to our president, and to conservatives. But you tried to manipulate what I said to fit your narrative, okay? I was not referring to the subject matter that is hilarious. I said it's hilarious that we are sitting in this room today, and I've got 2 doctors and a missus, and nobody can give us real numbers that we can respond to so we can assess how big of a threat this is. Because you know that it is not as big of a threat as you are trying to make it out to be, so that you can manipulate. And the audacity of you to bring up the Christchurch shooting manifesto and make it seem as if I laughed at people that were slaughtered by a homicidal maniac is, in my opinion, absolutely despicable. And I think that we should be above that. To try to assign reality or any meaning to a homicidal maniac writing a manifesto, which, by the way, let the record show, also stated Spyro the Dragon, the child's cartoon, as a source of inspiration. He also cited Nelson Mandela as a source of information. I don't think that Nelson Mandela has inspired mosque shootings. You can correct me if you think I'm wrong. You would rather assign meaning to a homicidal maniac than to actually address the things that I said today that are actually harming Black America. Number 1, father absence. Number 2, the education system and the illiteracy rate. Illegal.
Right there, family. Right there. So a lot of you may applaud this. But see, if she's so intelligent, which I believe she is intelligent, don't get me wrong, but if she's so intelligent, sitting in front of Congress and just spewing off white supremacist talking points, that the reason why Black America is in the state that it's in is because the men are not in the home. Correct. She's correct. I agree. But here lies the problem. Why? Why aren't the men in the home? Why? Why is there an enormous wage gap between Black Americans and every other group? Not just white folk, in every other group. Why is that? See, a lot of times when you admire people and they don't give you context, they kind of give you these sound bites. And then you take her current and present history into consideration, then you understand what I'm getting at. Let me back it up.
Maniac than to actually address the things that I said today that are actually harming Black America. Number 1, father absence. Number 2, the education system and the illiteracy rate. Illegal immigration.
Why is the father absentee rate in the Black community so high, Candace? Why is it so high? Because one of the major factors, and we all know, families like beating the drum, is mass incarceration. But here's the thing. Black people, Black men are still locked up 3 times as much as any other race. And you see the large amount of black people are getting released on the innocent projects that's been exonerated, but after they spent 10 to 20 to 30 years of their life in jail and they were innocent. But if you go through Truth Social, you go through Twitter, the only thing you see is that black people, as Candace Owens stated, are a murderous group. That is what she stated, family, that Black Americans are a murderous group.
Say, Tucker, is that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when the perpetrator is a black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country, given the fact that black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate.
That's what she stated. And someone say, well, if she just speaking the truth, Black Logic, you don't really have a pot to piss in. You don't really have a leg to stand on. But when you continue to look through her track record, the only thing you see is her leaning to an extremist white supremacy right. And not to talk, any ill will towards her family, towards her husband or anything of that nature, but we see what she married. And then someone say, well, there's no color in love. But when you started adding these things up, family, it's an undeniable conclusion that now she's trying to grip her way back into the black community by doing this whole playing in theater when she was doing the whole Biggie Smalls, Juicy. Come on, man. Because Candace Owens has been dishing out anti-black rhetoric like it's going out of style. She's been known to twist facts faster than a politician in a spin room. Because she has been perpetrating harmful stereotypes and minimizing the struggles of the black community. See, when people get to a certain level, Candace Owens is worth $5 million. Allegedly, she's worth $5 million. I don't know how much she's going to be worth now that she got fired from Daily Wire because allegedly she said some anti-Semitic things while speaking to some sort of rabbi. But now all of a sudden, she's been singing a different tune. I thought about this. Did Ben Shapiro fire her because it seems like she's getting to be more pro-black? Or was it because Ben Shapiro is a Jewish person and she was speaking very ferociously at a Jewish person? I don't know. There's a lot of things at play. One could have tipped the other. But now she's waving the pro-black flag like she's leading the parade. And like I said, the Joe Budden thing still hasn't kicked off yet. But before you start nodding, like a bobblehead, like, no, let's go back a little bit, because remember when Candace Owens out here countering the Black Lives Matter movement, as we stated before, she was talking about white lives matter, all lives matter rhetoric. We know that happened. And let's not forget her other greatest hit, like suggesting that black people need to stop playing the victim card and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. See, all of these are white supremacist talking points because they want to forego the things that has occurred and still occurring to this day. So what gives? Is Candace suddenly woke to struggles of black Americans, or is this another chapter in her playbook of contradictions? That's a good question, isn't that? Is she woke to the struggles, or is she just playing within her contradictions? See, this is a kind of a perspective that people don't really want to comb over. They just want to keep saying how intelligent she is and she's speaking up and speak the truth, but no one wants to go back and like, well, this is the person she is. Can we believe what she's stating all of a sudden without actually stating that she made a change? Have you noticed that? They just try to grift their way. They try to slide their way back into the black community without saying, hey, black folk, for this many years, I was selling us out for the bag. And I thought I was doing it for the betterment of me. But now that I see the wrongdoings of my words and showing up on all these platforms speaking down to black folk, I apologize. Hopefully you guys can take me back. She hasn't done that. She hasn't done that. She don't understand people who are feeling the weight of systematic oppression, pressing down on some people like a ton of bricks. And through history, we have always had laws and legislations that continue to uphold this unjust system. And then I know, I'm going to have some people who tell me, if you don't like it, leave. I don't have nowhere else to go. I'm a foundational Black American. I can trace my roots back in this country further than you can. I can trace my roots back in this country further than you can. So I don't have nowhere else to go. But a lot of you who make these comments, you guys got places to go. Europe, Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, South America. You guys can go back home. See, you came to something that was built on the backs of blacks, was built on free labor. And then you'll have these white supremacists, I don't know, partners. What can you call them, family? Who cozy up to white supremacy when they get here. Okay, and this is non-white folk who cozy up to white supremacy once they get here by denigrating their own people. And then when they break them, now they want to come back to the black community. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. So statements like that without context is trash. Now, I don't know if you guys caught her interview on Breakfast Club, and I didn't want to comb through that whole entire video, but there was a part of it that they had broke out, and all the videos here used today for the YouTube algorithms is fair use, fair use, fair use. But I do want to share with you, family, this video here. Give me 1 second. I don't know why it's not. Here we go. This was kind of really awkward, this kind of backstage interview that the Breakfast Club did, because they were trying to solidify her blackness, right? And it already broke down on Monday, Charlemagne the fraud, the God. And now it's starting to make sense, because for a very long time, we understand, if you guys ever been to court and you have a prosecutor and you have a defendant lawyer, they're friends. They're talking about deals behind your back. They're going to catch happy hour after they do your court case. They're trying to nip these court cases in the bud, get a quick fix, and they're out. So the same thing goes with these people on the right and left. A lot of these people behind closed doors, they're buddy, out in the open. But I'm gonna let you guys listen to this.
Yeah, we had Candace Owens on the show, another controversial Breakfast Club conversation. A lot of people like to question Candace Owens' blackness. I don't like to do that because she clearly is a black woman. But we do have questions about her being black.
How many fights did Will Smith get into before his mom got scared?
Oh, good question.
Not the motherfucking.
She's gonna sing
In
it.
West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spend most of my days.
Okay.
Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all shooting some
some
b-ball outside
outside
of the
of
school. When a couple of guys, they were up to no good, started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight.
You know, they were taking me back to the 90s.
No. That sister don't have any room to make that face. They gave her a platform to look more black. That she never say the harmful things to the black community. But see, here's the thing. When you have black people speak down about black people, whether it's the truth or not, whether it is the truth or not, still hurts black folk. Could I come out and actually give statistics that is not rooted in my bias of how my people are and what they is? Absolutely. But to go in on black folk time and time again and not speak about the disparities that still exist to this day, the discrimination to still exist to this day, is disingenuous, and it makes you a fraud because it gives the public, it gives white folk, and it gives non-black folk, and that includes all the other people of color or minorities, whatever they want to call them, excuses to discriminate against black folk, to create and to perpetuate more harmful stereotypes about black folk, and to incentivize the police to kill unarmed black people anytime they encounter them and said, I fear for my life. Because don't forget, Candace Owens stated that black people are a murderous group. But then she gets on platforms like this and say, oh, black people were this and they were artists and they were this. The one thing I noticed that Candace Owens didn't say when she was naming the achievements of black folk are engineers, scientists, research, IT specialists. She didn't say none of that. She was like, we're good with music and we're good with art. That is not the only thing black Americans are good with. See, that's another stereotypical thing about black folk. The only thing that we're good at is sports and entertainment. And entertainment includes comedy, it includes dancing, and it includes music and acting. That's the only thing black folk are good at, which is absolutely false and is untrue. But this is the narrative that Candace Owens puts out there for people to be motivated and more justified to harming black folk. So very quickly, family, I know some of these names you already know, like Garrett Morgan. He invented the gas mask and the 3-stop traffic light. Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson, okay? She has theoretical physics research at Bell Laboratories, laid the groundwork for caller ID and caller waiting and fiber optics cable. Oh, is that technology? Okay. The touch tone phone and portable fax machine. Royal L. Clay, mathematician, called the godfather of Black Silicon Valley in 1960. He developed a mini computer for Hewlett Packard, eventually leading HP's research and development computer group. Clay recruited employees from historical black colleges and universities and hired black engineers. Yes, Candace, they exist. Later, Clay founded a company in Silicon Valley and hired many black Americans from the area from East Palo Alto. Now, Marion Van Brown, you know that she created the first home security system there in New York. Our brother James West, you guys remember him, invented the 4U electric microphone. So every person who ever got in front of a microphone, whether be on video chat or what you guys call it with the iPhone, video chat and iChat and iVideo, whatever you call it. That phone, that mic inside of that was created originally by a black man. The compact design is used in approximately 90% of microphones today. The technology is used in camcorders, telephones, baby monitors, hearing aids, and tape recorders. West worked for Bell Laboratories, become a professor at Johns Hopkins, and have received at least 250 patents. So for people who don't believe that this is true, go check out his patent according to the U.S. government. I guess Bell Laboratories is probably the only people hiring intelligent engineers that are black. Mark Dean, an engineer, computer scientist, helped create technology at IBM that led to the first gigahertz chip in color monitor in 1996. He became the first black American to become an IBM fellow. Dean is also an inductee of the National Academy of Engineers and National Inventors Hall of Fame. Valerie Thomas invented the 3-dimensional images while working at NASA. The scientist and inventor, and you guys saw that recent movie, Hidden Figures, how those sisters got together, put together all those complicated algorithms to get us to space. If you notice, none of this she stated on The Breakfast Club. She was talking about the art. See, a lot of times when people are renaming, recalling, or spewing off some of your achievement, don't always focus on what they're saying. Focus on what they're not saying. Because the only thing she did was perpetuate semi-positive talking points. Well, black people, they're good at music and arts, and they're good at sports. What else are we good at? Well, you're good at music, arts, and sports, and entertainment. But no. Other than those things, what are we good at? Well, black people are very athletic, and you guys are very talented, and very emotional people. So you guys are good at. They won't go to this. They won't go to the intellectual, critical thinking, breaking down things part. They won't do it. They won't do it because then that debunks the narrative that black people are inherently stupid. That debunks that. You see what I'm saying? So again, by her leaning to that in that interview tells me otherwise. It tells me otherwise. Now, I know a lot of you guys are familiar with her getting fired from Daily Wire, and a lot of you may not know why.
Seen every single person, including myself, condemn what happened on October 7th. Because who wouldn't condemn terrorism? It's obvious. Who would not condemn innocent Israelis dying? But if you then say that it is also sad when an innocent Palestinian child dies, suddenly this is pro-Hamas, or you need to say, even when you're talking about how sad it is that a child dies, you need to button that statement by saying, but that child was a human shield. That's not going to be my response. First off, as a mother, that's not going to be my response as somebody who is about to give birth. When I see these images of children involved on both sides of the conflict, I've pointed to the people that are mocking dead Israeli children and said that they are horrific. I am even keel on this matter, and yet people think that you need to be extreme. So people that have become more radical and extreme are perceiving a moderate stance as not enough. And
because I was about to say, people can disagree with you or agree with you or whatever, but you certainly don't seem radical on this.
Personally, if I thought that racism could just be an ever-shifting definition based on the experience of Black people, it would be a remarkable power, and I would be able to create something like BLM, which could say that everything was racist. So,
do you guys believe that everything is racist? Now, I guess is the way you word it. Is everything racist? Or does everything have racism in it? Or does everything have racism in it? Because if you never eradicate racism from the very foundation of us building this country, then does racism still exist? Because a lot of people would tell me in my comment section, they would say, well, you guys were given everything. What were we given? Oh, you guys were given civil rights. We was giving civil rights that is supposedly already supposed to be given to us. What was supposed to create equal opportunity, which it didn't, it's been proven. Oh, well, you guys got affirmative action. Affirmative action didn't really help Black folk. And the statistics prove it. I proved it right here on Black Logic. It helped non-Black groups more than it ever helped Black folk. Well, you was given DEI. Well, DEI was never for Black folk in the first place. None of these were. But they have perpetuated this perception that it was for us. And of course, we had people to back it and go out and fight for these things. And when we got it, we realized that every other group was benefited from it except for us. We didn't benefit from affirmative action. We didn't benefit from DEI. Yeah, some people at some colleges, some people at some organizations that were Black got positions. So a couple of hundred people got jobs out of DEI. They made DEI blackface. They put people who were Black directors and managers of DEI. But the overall concept here, family, the overall idea is that DEI never significantly helped Black folk. It didn't. We still have a major wealth gap in America, and it's built off race because racism was never eradicated from this country. You guys can prove me wrong. And this last clip here, very, very powerful. Very, very powerful, family. But I'm going to go back here very quickly. I want you guys to see this. Listen to the rest of this.
80s and 90s, so I had to relive the song, and ultimately I did get to the scientific fact that he only had one little fight before his mother overreacted.
Finish this response. God is good.
Amen.
I've never seen that before, ever in my life. I mean, there's never been a time that I've yelled out, God is good, and somebody didn't answer. God is good.
But why do you say all the time back?
What church you went to, girl? What year was Cash Money Records taken over for?
Oh gosh, I know the answer to this one.
It was some good pieces in here, family. Then it was questions like this. I was like, I don't even know that. Who cares? But anyway.
Juvie. Like what?
Cash Money Records taking over this year?
Bitch, not this year. Not this year. The fuck?
No, you're not talking about Girl, You Look Good, Won't You?
Yes.
He backed that ass up. I knew the song, but did not remember the first 10 seconds of the song, apparently. So there was that. And yeah, I did pretty well
Candace,
otherwise.
one more question.
Uh-oh. She's
Has-
back.
Yep. Has your husband ever asked you to bust it wide open and then proceed to tell you, bring it back?
On several occasions, unexpectedly, my husband has definitively.
It's like, all right, never mind. Once you turn political, talking about definitively, like, no, just yes or no. Does he do that? Did you do that?
To bring it back, I think was the most important part that you said. And he has done both of those things, yes.
And you've done it.
Yes. I think the most important question from the Black quiz that I was made to endure unprompted was about raisins and potato salad, which actually is a crime.
She was scared to show up.
Yeah, family. That's all it took for me to look through that. That was painful because they was trying to solidify her Black card and to push that to who? The Black community. We already know who and what she is. And if we don't, we definitely need to ask somebody. And I was reading comments. It wasn't this one. It was one of the, I think it was this one right here, family. That kind of got me all in a row. Let me see. Candace Owens is me in the argument. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Right here. Here it is. Can I blow this up for you? Let me see if I can blow this up. I'll read it for you guys. Candace Owens may be the most intelligent woman. This is an older white guy. The picture shows an older white guy. Candace Owens may be the most intelligent woman I've ever heard speak. Maybe even the most intelligent person. If I were a liberal and knew that I had to face her in debate, I would be pissing my pants with fear. She is awesome. And what makes it so great is that it flows so easily from her because she only speaking the truth. Keep up the fight, young lady. I'm a big fan. Bo and Luke Duke. Nah, that's not their name. Bo and Luke Duke. No, that's not that. That's Dukes of Hazzard. But it might as well just say that Bo and Luke Duke. And this is the problem. I read another comment on another video I was researching, and the guy would say, "Oh, Candace Owens is a very intelligent Black woman. I would love for my daughter to grow up and be like her." And I say, "Well, I guess he didn't. I guess he don't know what ideology she aligns with. Maybe a lot of people just don't know." We're trying to break it down, family. I see everybody in the room. Thank you for joining me here this evening. Ja Rule, Cheryl Mitchell, Donna Brown, Remnant Reanimated, Ricky Manor. I see you guys. I got a lot to get through. My warrior brother, DSB. Thanks for moderating, sir. Appreciate that. MS Unlimited. Our number one coon, Solid Snakes. Nice to see you, brother. Okay, always got to have your haters watching now. Always got to have your haters. Please don't mention Al Sharpton, goddamn. Please don't mention Al Sharpton. Shit. So we understand that America was built on slavery. We understand that. There's going to be a lot of people trying to lie about that, but we know the truth, okay? And then we went over slightly, very, very quickly, of the ousting of her from Daily Wire because she supposedly, allegedly, from the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, that she was spewing anti-Semitic sentiments. But here we're talking about anti-Black sentiments that she's been spewing towards into the white community about Black folk for a very long time. So this next clip we're going to get into, you're going to understand even more so why her Black card is revoked. We cannot and will not give it back. See, automatically, some people may disagree with this, but automatically, you are given a black card when you're born, right? You got this black card and you're living with this black card. Some people are like, no, man, your black card is earned. No. We tend to give you the black card because a lot of times when people see a black person, you don't know if they have their black card or not, but you kind of give them the nod. If they nod back, you're like, okay, he got his black card. There's a very old school popular song. There's something we used to do back in the day, hopscotch, whatever it may be, double dutch. You're like, okay, you got your black card. Then throughout life, there's some things you're like, oh no, I think he got his black card revoked. Soon as she came on the scene, we knew that she was probably born without her. Someone stole it, she dropped it, she lost it, or she gave it away, or she sold it. Because she did not have it. Oh no, she did not have it. Why is that?
Being an apologist for colonialism for her white conservative audience.
But the real truth of the reason why people hate the Queen has nothing to do with the colonization, has nothing to do, which, by the way, just to be clear, the Brits invading Africa actually represents, and this is going to get me in trouble, but it was, if you look at how forward it brought the African colonies, it ended up being a net positive. Now, this is, of course, it's going to get me in trouble because people somehow think that Africans were living happily ever after and things were great, and then the horrible English, British descended upon and murdered everybody, and the French suddenly murdered everybody, and that just isn't the truth. Obviously, the African nations had slavery, just like the European nations had slavery. Wow. So it's an evil that was not started, did not begin in Europe, actually. It can actually be traced back to Muslim origins.
All right, this is white supremacist talking points, that the British went to Africa to liberate them. They were primitive and they were not able to construct their own societies. And the British and the European white saviors went there to liberate them, as opposed to like carving up the entire continent in a haphazard way that would only be beneficial for capital, as opposed to like the explicit purpose of going there.
I think this was a really good breakdown by the Majority Report. So shout out goes to them. Fair use, fair use. All the video clips used here today was for commentary purposes and for contextual insight. And when we look at the way they broke this down, the lady in the middle here, I don't know her name, but she did a very beautiful constructed breakdown of the white ideology, white supremacist talking point of Candace Owens. Okay. And I think a lot of these things get overlooked because people are like, oh, she's just speaking the truth. She's very intelligent. Okay, let me tell you, a lot of you guys are going to get frauded. You know how a lot of people from different countries used to call America and say, hey, your grandfather, your grandmother left you $1 to $2 million. The only thing I need is your bank account number. And Americans, dumb as hell, was falling for it, giving them their bank account number. Like, who you know in Africa? Who you know in India? Who you know in Poland, and you black or you white and you're in a black country and they left you $5 million. We're so gullible. Just because somebody sound good and look good to you does not mean they're telling the truth. Backed it up in fact. And that's what they did here on the Majority Report. Shout out goes to them. They actually were speaking truth to power. Let me continue.
To construct their own societies, and the British and the European white saviors went there to liberate them, as opposed to like carving up the entire continent in a haphazard way that would only be beneficial for capital, as opposed to like the explicit purpose of going there to enslave and traffic Africans. That was a net positive, and it's a net positive for, say, like Europe and the Europeans there, because they both were able.
Those jewels on the Queen.
On one hand, we exploited free labor from slaves and trafficked human beings and murdered them and raped them as a way to construct our society and extract their wealth for without returning it to them. But on the other hand, we ended up feeling kind of really bad about it. So on the whole, though, a net positive. But did we? Net positive. Right.
Sort of philosophy around like every person being equal. It was to like steal natural resources and to extract wealth.
European nations had slavery. So it's an evil that was not started, did not begin in Europe, actually. It can actually be traced back to Muslim origins. And for whatever reason, people have this fantastical rendition of history where they think that it was only white people that ever did anything bad, when in fact the truth is that even in terms of our own history, American history, it was the Africans that were selling the Africans to the Europeans.
Wow.
And usually
Pause
for
it.
things as big.
I think we both had a pause because we understand that these talking points, like what she just stated, that you'll hear a lot of Black people say, well, your own kind sold you into slavery. So they're going to do a better breakdown than I would. I'm not going to ramble on. I'll let them go ahead and finish this dialogue, because what they're about to respond to of those white supremacist talking points of Africans, they're acting as though that Africa itself, like all these Africans sold Black Americans, or at that moment, Africans, into slavery. Like it was this big, huge, like there was this tons of, listen in.
Why did that system get set up, Candace? Why was that the case? Who implemented the system in which that extractive slave trade was happening? A global colonial capitalist slave trade. There were just some Africans working on behalf of a colonial system, like something that, and on behalf of a racist system. That was the economy that was created.
Basic as gin and mirrors. I talk about this ends that were selling the Africans to the Europeans, and usually for things as basic as gin and mirrors. I talk about this in my book. Like it was really basic things. And when Europeans set out to end slavery, by the way, it was white men that were the first in the world to abolish the slave trade, right? People don't like that fact.
Well, yeah.
It's a very inconvenient fact from the narrative. That
anytime there's a slave revolt, that is non-white people deciding that they want to abolish slavery. They were not empowered enough to do so.
In the end, it was the slave masters who decided to free the slaves.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally automatic. And they came to that conclusion by dispassionately crunching the numbers in Microsoft Excel and saying, this is inefficient. And by the way, yeah, maybe we should do something else.
Yeah, maybe she should take a look at like Haiti's history and the fact that for centuries they were having to pay reparations because they had a slave revolt, and paying reparations to slaveholders because they lost capital. Or
and also Haiti is a good example to bring up too, because a lot of places that abolished the slave trade, or like a lot of people who felt differently about the slave trade, did so after the Haitian Revolution out of a fear of what it might lead to personally in terms of violence for white slave owners. And that's why some places cracked down, some places abolished slavery as a result. Like it wasn't out of the goodness out of anyone's heart.
No, there were violent revolutions and rebellions for slaves, but it was just the white people decided after also a bloody war here in the United States that we probably shouldn't do this anymore.
White people are evil and backwards. They were not the first to do it, but they were the first to end it. That is the truth. I think it was France first, followed by the UK, followed by America, that ended the slave trade.
How'd that happen?
Actually,
keep going.
Africans that fought and said, no, we want to maintain the system of slavery because it is good for us. So this is something, as I said, that can be traced back to people just being extremely ignorant about history, because everything has literally been transformed into a black and white narrative, pun very much intended.
I learned a lot today about who's at fault for slavery. I would have gone in thinking the slave masters, but I've come out thinking the slaves. And Kanye West pilled, I guess.
Sounds like a choice.
Every day Candace chooses to be free. Why didn't the slaves?
Family, I know a lot was said there, but here's the thing. Now, I saw a comment. No one's denying that there were some Africans that sold Africans into slavery to white Europeans who were coming over there. But the point made in that ending part of the video is that they are the one who created the system. They already created the system, and the Africans were participating. Then some people say, well, they couldn't create the systems without Africa. Yes, they could. They were more powerful. They had more powerful weaponry. So they could definitely create the system. It has made it more easier if they got some people to collude with them in order to trade a lot of these Africans, a lot of our ancestors into slavery. It has made it more easy. They already had the power to do so. So I see what you guys are saying, but that's not the point of the thing. It's not stating what she said about certain points, because a good lie always contains the truth. Because if I if I sit up here and I spew negative comments towards the Asian community, towards the Jewish community, towards the Hispanic community, and the way that I capture my audience is speak some in truth, some in conjecture, and some lies. We have to understand that Candace Owens are paid for a bootlick of the conservative right side of the house, because you have bootlicks, you have Republican shields and Democratic shields. But this is on a whole nother level. This is when it gets very dangerous for Black Americans, because you're basically debunking our claim to reparations. You're basically stating that, oh, well, Africans are the ones who benefited from slavery. Africans are the ones that benefit from this system. They're the ones who did all of this. They're the ones who created this system. That's what they're saying here. That's what they're stating here. What you guys don't understand is that Candace Owens has made a career out of being the ultimate contrarian when it comes to the issues affecting Black Americans. At every given point, she made it a mission. And again, she was getting paid for it, for dismissing the existence of systematic racism, cozying up to the very systems that perpetuate it. She's been all over the map with it. Now she's trying to come back. Remember when Owens claimed that racism wasn't a big deal in America anymore? Yeah, that was a gem, was it not? But then you fast forward to more recent times when suddenly she's a self-appointed spokesperson for Black empowerment, and then they're giving her black card tests. Oh, how many times did Will Smith get into a fight before he was sent off with this? It's almost like watching a gymnastic perform mental acrobats. She's been very, very busy flip-flopping like a fish out of water. These are the things that continue to trick the Black community, because we're looking at things from an emotional standpoint. We're getting hung up on people's words and what they're saying. No, let's just get hung up on the truth. Let's just get hung up on the truth. That's where we need to go, family. So I know a lot of people in the comment section, you're doing your political affiliations. Reparation Now says I have to mention this when makeup doesn't help the Candace Owens. I see my good brother Jermaine Anderson. Nice to see you, sir. That's right, Mr. Rick. They don't deny that they was involved in it. But I think you guys are not understanding the full context. You guys heard the term that more than one thing can be true. Again, this is the making of a good lie. See, it's kind of like, maybe I bring it down to earth for you guys. It's almost like stating, you're talking to your child. And you ask them, was you over Connor's house? No, I was over in the area. Or they make it more outlandish than what it is. Oh, when I was over at Connor's house, his father elbowed me, but he never been to Connor's house. I don't know if that's a good example, but the point I'm making is that she took a piece of truth, stretched it, lied, amalgamated, and put it in a context to box it in as though that Africa benefited for colonialism and that they was in on it to a point that was so significant that Europeans should not be faulted for slavery here in America. That Europeans should not be faulted because they did a great thing from Africa. Have anybody been to Africa and comparing the country with the most resources in the world to other countries? There's parts of Africa in their cities where it's really nice, but then the majority of the country itself lives impoverished. A lot of these African countries are living more than 50% in poverty. Why is that? because they're lazy, but then Africans will come over here and tell us that they're not lazy, that we're lazy. So what is it? The truth is the truth. Everybody, oh, well, she's speaking the truth. Well, let's speak the truth then. Where would Africa be without colonialism? Would they be riding on the right and left side of the road? Would they be speaking all of these European languages? I think not. Or would there be countries built up like Mali when Mansa Musa was there, the richest man in the world at one point in time? Supposedly he's the richest man of all time. Like he had more money and Bill Gates and Elon Musk to the point where he was inflating the gold value in other countries because he was going across the country lines, just giving out money, just giving out gold. So here's the thing. No one can ever convince me or try to give me a picture of what Africa will look like if the Europeans had stepped in and colonized them in their own country. Because we don't know what Africa would have been. But we know what it is today, and we know the conditions that a lot of them African countries were in when they were being colonized. And a lot of these countries just were released from colonialism in the 1960s. So when people, listen, this is a two-sided conversation. To my Foundation Black American family, we got to look at both sides of it. This is not to bring in the tethers and speak bad about Black Americans and you should fix the country you have at home, create opportunities there. We know all of that. But when we look at the conditions of Africa, there are major players in a role why Africa is still the way it is. And a lot of people will say it's their governments. Yeah, that's a large part, but the other part is still they're being colonized economically by Western and Eastern groups. So we're not given the full context and having a large platform, you're influencing the mind of people that are radicalizing them. And if you don't believe it, to harm Black folk. And you try to really discredit the claim of reparations in some sense with comments like that. But nonetheless, I thank you guys for joining me here this evening. Royalty says, for one, we aren't African. We're Israel. Slavery in Africa was also different. You can only be a slave for 7 years, and slaves were a part of their family, not cattle slaves. And that's the big difference that a lot of people have been stating, that slavery in Africa, because she stated there was slavery in Africa, that it was almost to the point of what we define as indentured servitude. They wasn't enslaved for the rest of their entire life, including their children and their children's children. And if you ever read the Willie Lynch speech, then you understand that the plan, the plot, worked perfectly for them. But that's all, family. This was never to design. I don't go out and smear people. What I do is I try to research the truth and present it, and you be the judge. But in my book, she's a turncoat and sellout, but I understand. I do not believe her roots are solidified in foundational Black American history. So it's easier to talk about a people that you do not relate to. Be one.